Ever wondered what it'd be like to stare a hurricane right in the face?
I'm talking about being in a plane, inside the eye of the storm.
Intense.
Today's deep dive is all about those brave souls, the hurricane hunters.
And they're not just adrenaline junkies, although I'm sure there's a bit of that in there.
Right.
These missions are all about gathering critical data, literally helping to keep people safe.
Okay, so safe career choice? Debatable,
Yeah.
but vitally important. Absolutely. So let's rewind a bit. We're talking before satellites, before instant communication, before Twitter.
Yeah.
How on earth did we track these massive storms?
You're right. It was a totally different world back then. We relied heavily on ships at sea.
Right.
They'd send observations, but it was often, well, too little too late. It's tough to get a complete picture of a massive swirling storm when you're just one tiny dot on the ocean.
Makes sense. So where did the hurricane hunters come into the picture?
Well, picture this. It's 1943, World War II is raging, and a hurricane later dubbed the Surprise Hurricane is bearing down on Houston, Texas. At Bryan Field, American forces are evacuating their AT-6 Texan training aircraft, while a group of British pilots training there, well, they start questioning the plane's sturdiness.
Wait, hold up. British pilots questioning American aircraft. I sense a story brewing here.
You know it. Seeing a chance to prove a point, maybe win a bet or two, Colonel Joe Duckworth, one of the American pilots, decides to take matters into his own hands. He takes a Texan right into the eye of the hurricane.
No way! He flew a training plane into a hurricane on a bet. That's some serious guts.
He certainly had nerves of steel,
Yeah.
and it paid off. Duckworth and his navigator, Lieutenant Ralph O'Hare, not only made it back safe and sound, but they also brought back incredibly valuable data about the hurricane's behavior.
So a risky bet led to the birth of the hurricane hunters.
Yeah.
That's one for the history books. But I have to ask, what kind of data could they even gather with the technology back then?
Yeah, well, they didn't have all the fancy gadgets we have today, but they still had some tricks up their sleeve. Barometers, for instance, were crucial for measuring pressure, a key indicator of a hurricane's intensity. And anemometers helped them measure wind speed. These pioneers were literally flying into the heart of the storm, taking readings by hand, and then relaying that information back to forecasters.
Wow, talk about dedication. They were putting their lives on the line to understand these storms.
Absolutely. Those early missions were risky, but they proved something crucial, that it was possible to fly into a hurricane and come back with data that could save lives. It was the spark that ignited decades of innovation and ultimately led to the highly sophisticated operations we see today.
From handheld anemometers to, what, flying laboratories? That evolution must have been incredible. Flying laboratories, you say.
All right, you've got me hooked. Paint me a picture. What's it like to be on one of these modern hurricane hunting missions?
Well, imagine this. You climb aboard a WC-130J Hercules, the workhorse of the Air Force Reserve's 53rd Weather Reconnaissance Squadron. These guys inherited that hurricane hunter nickname, and they wear it proudly.
The Hercules. That's a seriously rugged plane, right? I mean, it has to be to handle a hurricane.
You're not kidding. It's built to withstand incredible forces, able to punch through those intense winds and updrafts that would tear a regular plane apart. But it's not just about brute strength. It's about the science happening inside.
Okay, enough suspense. What kind of high-tech gear are we talking about here?
One of their most important tools is something called a drop sonde.
A what?
A drop sonde. Imagine a high-tech weather station packed into a tube.
Like a message in a bottle, but for science.
Exactly. As the plane flies over the hurricane, they release these drop sondes. They plummet through the storm, transmitting real-time data back to the plane. Temperature, humidity, wind speed, wind direction.
Wow, so they're getting a whole vertical slice of the hurricane structure all from this little tube falling through the sky.
Precisely. And it gets even cooler. You see, inside that drop sonde is a little parachute that deploys as it falls.
To slow it down.
Exactly. This isn't just about breaking its fall. It's about giving it more time to collect data and transmit it back. You see, those swirling hurricane winds can really mess with radio signals. The longer the drop sonde transmits, the more data we get.
That's some clever engineering. So the Air Force has the Hercules. What about NOAA? Are they dropping weather stations out of the sky too?
NOAA's hurricane hunters have their own weapon of choice, the WP-3D Orion. If the Hercules is the four-wheel drive, the Orion is a high-tech lab on wings. It's absolutely packed with sensors and instruments.
Okay, I'm ready for the gadget rundown. What kind of toys does this flying lab have?
One of their coolest tools is the tail Doppler radar. It's this massive dish mounted on the back of the plane, and it gives them a 3D view right into the heart of the hurricane.
Right.
We're talking about mapping its structure, the way it's moving, everything.
Hold on. They can see the entire hurricane in 3D from inside the storm.
Pretty much. And they have another radar system mounted underneath that gives them a super detailed look at the lower levels of the storm where it interacts with the ocean. That's critical for understanding how powerful it might become. Remember, hurricanes get their energy from warm ocean water.
That's right. They're like giant heat engines.
Exactly.
So how do they measure the ocean's temperature from the air?
They use something called a bathythermograph. It gets lowered into the water from the plane, measuring the temperature at different depths.
So we've got the Hercules, built for toughness, and the Orion, this flying data center. But it's not all just about the tech, is it? There are actual people flying these missions, making the decisions, reading the instruments.
Absolutely. And they're a special breed. You've got your pilots, obviously, the best of the best, trained to navigate through the most turbulent conditions imaginable.
I can only imagine what kind of skills it takes to fly a plane through a hurricane.
It's a different league.
Yeah.
And then you've got the navigators, the flight engineers, keeping everything running smoothly, the meteorologists analyzing the data in real time.
Wait, there are meteorologists on board during the flight.
Oh, yeah, it's all hands on deck up there. They're the ones interpreting the data as it comes in, helping the pilots make decisions about where to fly, how close to get to the most intense parts of the storm.
Talk about a high-pressure job.
No kidding. And let's not forget about the folks back on the ground, analyzing the data, running the forecasting models. It's a huge team effort, all working together to understand these incredibly complex storms.
It's mind-blowing thinking about all this happening in the middle of a hurricane.
Planes, dropsondes, radar, teams on the ground.
Yeah.
But let's connect the dots. All this data they're risking their necks to collect, what's it actually used for?
It all boils down to one crucial thing: creating those hurricane forecasts we see on the news, the ones that tell people where the storm is going and how strong it'll be.
So when I see that hurricane track on my weather app, that's based on information gathered by hurricane hunters.
Absolutely. Remember those dropsondes measuring wind speed and direction at different altitudes?
Yeah.
That information is critical for understanding wind shear. Basically, how much the wind changes as you go higher into the atmosphere.
Okay, but why is wind shear so important?
Well, strong wind shear can actually weaken a hurricane by disrupting its structure. On the other hand, low wind shear can allow a hurricane to intensify rapidly, becoming much more dangerous very quickly.
Right.
The data from those dropsondes helps forecasters determine if a hurricane has the potential to rapidly intensify, giving people in its path precious extra time to prepare or evacuate.
Wow, so it's not just about knowing where the hurricane is going, but how it might change along the way.
Exactly. And then there's the matter of the hurricane's intensity. Remember those pressure readings the hurricane hunters take?
Lower pressure equals a stronger, more dangerous storm.
You got it. By measuring the central pressure, they're helping determine just how powerful the hurricane is and, importantly, if it's getting stronger or weaker. And this data isn't just useful in real time. By combining decades' worth of data with increasingly sophisticated computer models, scientists can improve those forecasts, making them more accurate over time.
It's amazing how it all comes together. From a single dropsonde falling through the sky to these complex models predicting a hurricane's every move.
It's a testament to how far we've come in our understanding of these powerful storms. But, as you mentioned earlier, it's not without its risks.
It's true. Flying into a hurricane is inherently dangerous, and we'd be remiss not to acknowledge those who've made the ultimate sacrifice in the pursuit of understanding these storms.
Indeed. Over the years, there have been aircraft lost and crews lost. Brave men and women who gave their lives in service of this vital work.
It's a sobering thought, but it also makes you realize how dedicated these hurricane hunters are, putting their lives on the line to keep people safe.
Their commitment to the mission is incredible. And as we face the growing threat of climate change, their work becomes even more crucial.
Right.
Warmer ocean temperatures are like rocket fuel for hurricanes, making them more intense, more unpredictable.
So the challenges are only going to get tougher for these modern-day explorers.
You could say that,
Yeah.
but we're also seeing amazing technological advancements. Unmanned aircraft, or drones, are being used more and more, allowing us to gather data in areas too dangerous for humans. We're talking about flying into the eye wall of a Category 5 hurricane, something that would be incredibly risky for a manned flight.
Wow, that's pushing the boundaries. So The future of hurricane hunting is going to be a mix of these incredible people and cutting-edge technology.
Absolutely. Imagine a future where we can deploy a fleet of drones into a hurricane, giving us a 360-degree view of the storm, unlike anything we can achieve today. The possibilities are really exciting.
It's incredible to think about how far we've come from that first daring flight in 1943. A bet, a training plane, and a whole lot of courage paved the way for the science that keeps millions safe today.
It's a remarkable story of human ingenuity and our determination to understand and predict even the most powerful forces of nature.
So the next time we see that hurricane track on the news or hear those warnings on the radio, let's take a moment to remember the hurricane hunters past and present who braved the storm to bring us that vital information.
To those on the front lines of hurricane science, we salute you.
And that, my friends, is a wrap on this deep dive into the world of hurricane hunters. Until next time, stay curious.